Alright people, not too long ago I set up my brand new Fluval Roma 240 and we finished scaping it. It's cycled now, it's got a few fish in it and it's looking amazing. So I was thinking it's about time I tell you guys exactly how much money I spent on setting up this Fluval Roma 240, and we're gonna go through everything from the price of the tank, the cabinet, the substrate, the hardscape, the plants, everything. And yeah people, I can tell you right now, it cost me a lot of money. Well, it was a lot of money for me. I spent a very long time saving up for it. But yeah, if you're thinking about getting yourself a Fluval Roma 240 or any fish tank in general, hopefully this video will give you a good idea of how much you're potentially going to spend. By the way, my voice isn't fully back yet, so if it does suddenly go, apologies for that. And yeah, let's just get started. So first, let's talk about the fish tank, because essentially that is going to be your biggest cost. But the good thing is most of the aquariums these days, they do come with all the equipment that you need. So they should come with a light, a filter and a heater, and most of them, like the Fluval Roma series, should have a matching cabinet as well. So yeah, if you are looking at different fish tanks, I would recommend getting a complete set that comes with all the equipment and the cabinet. Now my Fluval Roma 240 with the filter, heater, light and the cabinet cost me £705. Yeah, it was a big chunk of my budget. Now technically I could have gotten the tank cheaper online, however for me personally I did prefer going to Wholesale Tropicals, partly because I'll be directly supporting the store, they always look after me in that, but also because when it comes to a big purchase like this, I feel much more comfortable getting it from them. So if there is a problem, I know I can go to Terry and speak to him about it, whereas if I order it online, I'm gonna have to deal with someone online or emails, and that was just too much hassle. So yeah, although it cost me a little bit more, I decided to go through Wholesale Tropicals and it cost £705. Now while I was in Wholesale Tropicals buying the fish tank, I also took the opportunity to look at some hardscape and play around with their display tanks, and I did actually find some really cool pieces that I wanted to keep. Now the thing is, some of them were quite heavy. One of the rocks was really big but I had some really cool patterns, and one of the wood pieces were also very big and heavy. So the total came up to £75, which including the fish tank brings us to 780. Now I should mention that I didn't actually use the big piece of wood and it's actually now in my snakes enclosure, but there's no real way for me to know how much that piece of wood actually cost. So we're just gonna knock off £20 from the total, bringing us to £760. Now we're gonna go in order of what I bought, and the next thing that I done is go to Fish Planet. Now Fish Planet had a huge selection, however at the time that I went there, I went just before payday and I didn't really have the budget, but I did pick out two pieces of wood which looked really cool and I spent £50 on them. However, I didn't actually end up using them for the fish tank. One of them also went into my snakes enclosure and the other one went into my Fluval Flex. So yeah, I'm not gonna add the £50 to the total because they didn't go into the Roma 240. But yeah people, I wasn't too mad about it either because I was planning to get some wood for my snakes enclosure and I just ended up using that, so it was all good. But like I mentioned people, they did have a lot of selection there, so after payday I went straight back and I bought myself some stuff. Now the first thing I looked at was some plants. We've got like 4 or 5 loose plants that were like in the display tank, and we also got 2 of those little cups. The total of that was about £30 to £35. We also got some more cereal rock and we got some really cool pieces of spider wood or azalea root, and the pieces of wood are so cool, especially when you put all 3 together. I made sure that the branches all kind of went into the same direction as well, and yeah, the rocks, we just needed more rocks anyway because I kind of wanted to make a little mountain. We also bought a big bag of substrate. That substrate was for the plants, that goes underneath the gravel. It's nutrients for the plants and that bag was about £33. And yeah, in total in Fish Planet, for the plants, the rocks, the wood and the substrate, we spent £110, bringing us to the total of £870. Now before we carry on people, if you are enjoying this video, then let me know by leaving a like or a comment, and if you want to see more videos like this every single week, then please remember to subscribe. It really helps me out. But yeah people, so for the fish tank, we now had the tank itself, we had some hardscape with the wood and the rocks, and we had the substrate for the plants which goes underneath the gravel, but we still had to get the gravel. Now I decided to get the black sand from Pets at Home, and technically I could have gotten it for cheaper if I just got a different brand or if I went to Wholesale Tropicals for example. However, the reason I went for the Pets at Home sand is because in my 200 litre I've got the Pets at Home sand, and this is the home of my moray eel Lily. lily. And as most of you know, I bought the Roma 240 for my moire eel lily, and I wanted to make sure when I do eventually move her that the transition is as smooth as possible. So I wanted to make sure that the substrate and the gravel is exactly the same. So because I have Pets at Home sand here, I decided to get the Pets at Home black sand again for the Roma 240. Now for the Roma 240, I bought 4 bags of the biggest size, and I also bought 1 additional small bag of the plant substrate just in case that I needed it, and the total for all of that was £80. Now I should mention I did have a few Pets at Home vouchers, otherwise it would have been slightly more expensive, but we're going by what I paid, and that was £80, which brought us to the total of £950. Now people, I can't lie, at this point I was getting a bit depressed because I saved up £1,000 and it took forever to save up that money, people. And I was kind of hoping that I would have some money left over at the end that I might potentially be able to spend on a new fish. However, at this point it did look like I was gonna go over budget, and yeah, I ended up being right because I set up the whole tank. The scape looked amazing, but whilst I was looking at it, I realized this tank didn't have any actual caves, which was a big problem because my moire eel, for who this tank is ultimately for, needs caves. So once again, I had to spend some money, people. I went back to Pets at Home and I got myself 3 caves, and the total for that was £25. Now I also noticed that the Roma 240 needed more plants, so whilst I was there I also got some more plants for the total of £15, meaning we spent a total of £40, bringing us to £990. Now at this point I was quite happy with the tank. We had the right amount of plants now. It still looked a little bit empty, but I knew these plants were going to grow, and once they grow it would look much nicer, which it does now. However, there still seemed to be something missing, and it was the rocks, people. You see, I had quite a few rocks in there, but they were all the same size and it didn't have any levels. So I decided to go to Wholesale Tropicals again and buy a few more rocks of different sizes, just so we have a bit of variety in the fish tank, and it just gave it all these different types of levels. Now this final batch of cereal stones cost me £25, which finally took me over the budget, and we were at £1,015. Yeah, it was depressing. Now people, I was quite lucky because I already had fish tanks, so many of the accessories that you would need I already had. Those are things like buckets, the nets, the siphon to get water out, fish food and all of that. I already had all of that, so I didn't need to spend any extra money. But if you are setting up your first fish tank, keep in mind you are going to have to spend some money on that. Now people, I do have some links to some cheap aquarium products on Amazon in my description, so if you want to check them out, feel free. But yeah, just keep in mind you are going to have to spend some money on that if this is your first fish tank. And yeah people, all in all, when it comes to setting up a Roma 240, this is what you're going to be looking at. Of course it comes down to how much you're going to spend on the hardscape and things like that, but this should give you a general idea. Now the last thing of course is going to be the fish. The prices do vary a lot. I mean, you can get a few tetras for a couple pounds. However, you also have things like the moire eel or the stormy catfish, which can cost you well over £100. But yeah, all in all people, the main thing is just be prepared that this can cost you a lot more money than you think. You see, a lot of people look at fish tanks and they see a certain price like, oh, this tank only costs £300, but you're not thinking about that. You're gonna have to get a cabinet for that. You're gonna have to get the rocks, the substrate, the plants, everything, and on top of that you're still gonna have to get the fish, and then you're gonna have to pay money to maintain those fish. Like, there is a lot of costs, and yeah, I can't lie, I was really hoping I'd be left with maybe £100 or £200 that I can spend on some fish, but of course I didn't. Oh yeah people, it is what it is. But I do have to say people, I don't regret any of it. I look at the fish tank every single day and I love it, and it was worth every single penny. And if you want to see the day I set up my new fish tank, then click right here.